From atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West, you are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. Sam Bushman live on your radio. This is Liberty RoundTable Live, hour 2 of 2, July the 15th, in the year of our Lord, 2025, promoting God, family, country, protecting life, liberty, and property, rejecting revolution unless it's a Jesus revolution. Then we're in because we follow the Prince of Peace. Last hour, we talked a lot about God, about family, about country, and how to be involved in the solutions. This is Solutions Radio, ladies and gentlemen. We talked about the Tabernacle Choir, one of the oldest choral organizations in the world, 96 straight years. Yeah, every single week without interruption. 5,000 incredible episodes. If you want to learn more about it, churchofjesuschrist.org. And it's one of the longest running broadcast church services in the world. It's called Music in the Spoken Word. Check it out. It's great for people, whether you're a member of the church or not. People love it worldwide. It's really an icon. Broadcasters around the world are celebrating the 5,000th episode. We also issued prayers for those in the Grand Canyon North Rim where there's fires, those who are in the floods in Texas, and now the Storm Tracker says system could bring heavy rain to Florida. So we pray for those folks as well. And we got to turn to God in natural disasters, folks. And I don't hear many people talking about that. They want to place blame or point fingers or ask government to just come up with more money. But when are we going to turn to God? Anyway, we talked about that quite a bit. We talked about, with the church example and then these floods in contrast, how we can turn to God and recognize our relationship to him, and he can give us tremendous comfort. We talked about the U.S. House of Representatives has initiated what they're calling Crypto Week this week. They're voting on all kinds of bills. Okay? And the U.S. House of Representatives may vote as early as tomorrow on the bill H.R. 1919, the CDBC Anti-Surveillance State Act. It would stop the government from creating or backing, promoting, whatever you want to call it, codifying a digital currency. Call your representative at 202-224-3121. Tell them to please vote yes on H.R. 1919. Americans do not need and do not want a central bank digital currency. That's what CDBC stands for. CBDC. Wow, I don't know why I get that wrong. CBDC, Central Bank Digital Currency, CBDC. Anyway, enough of that. But vote yes on H.R. 1919. Please get involved, folks. We need your support. Your congressmen and senators need to hear from you. All right, this is a tragic situation. And I'm not really going to pick sides, but I'm going to highlight the controversy. Donald Trump has so many controversies, it's hard for me to even keep track of all of them. And I'm sad to say I don't like controversy. I don't like division. You know what? Division and anger, and that's all of the devil, ladies and gentlemen. Peace and prosperity and unity and tranquility and civility, and those are the things of God. Anyway, there's a big old battle, and here it is. AOC, that's Ocasio-Cortez, right? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. AOC, quote, sets herself up to pay $15 million to Donald Trump after she let her keyboard get ahead of her brain, writes Douglas C. Golden. He's over at westernjournal.com. And he goes back to a conversation that Stephanopoulos and ABC had where they're talking about one of the congresswomen supporting Donald Trump said, you endorsed Donald Trump for president? Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape. Well, whoa, hold on. That's what Stephanopoulos said during the interview. But the problem is the courts did not say Donald Trump was guilty of rape. Slight issue, they say. Trump was not found liable for rape. It was a kangaroo courts where Jean Carroll found him liable for sexual abuse, not rape. They say there's a significant difference legally between rape and whatever. And considering the fact that Manhattan juries would have likely found Trump civilly liable for the deaths of Julius Caesar, Jimmy Hoffa. Anyway, they say the fact that they didn't go that far speaks volumes. In other words, they didn't go as far as to say Donald Trump raped someone. But here's the problem. Saying somebody was found liable in a crime they were not found liable for, I should say liable, not libel. Wow. Sorry about that. All right, listen. Libel is like libel and slander when you accuse somebody of something falsely and you know it. But liable is where you're responsible for something, right? Anyway, if you claim someone's guilty of a crime that they were not liable for, it's legally actionable, folks. And Stephanopoulos and ABC ended up paying over, $15 million for that blunder, right? So now that's why they're kind of saying, hey, you know what? AOC is setting herself up to pay just like Stephanopoulos and ABC did, right? So that's the problem. Saying somebody was found liable in a crime they were not found liable of is legally actionable. And ABC and Stephanopoulos ended up paying $15 million for that, they say, rather avoidable blunder. I agree with that. You don't have to say that. Well, here's the deal. I'm not here to attack Ocasio-Cortez. And I'm not here to attack or defend Donald Trump. And I'm not here to defend Ocasio-Cortez either. Here's what I am here to say. I am hoping that we as a people can rise above this. I hope we can give a little bit of grace to Donald Trump. I hope we can give a little bit of grace to AOC. The fact that we're even debating this about Donald Trump is a sad commentary when it comes to the leaders of our nation. It's of great moral concern in the first place, right? But AOC then having loose lips and whatever, typing at her keyboard ahead of her brain, as Douglas C. Golden put it, I agree. She shouldn't have done it. But can we give AOC a little bit of grace? Now you say, Sam, why are you defending AOC? I'm not. I'm not defending either side. All I'm simply saying is, do we need more lawfare? Do we need more division? Do we need more hatred? Do we need more, and I would say it's equivalent to bearing false witness about people or things or places, or do we need more of that? So I agree AOC set herself up for problems. Not good. But I will also say that at the same time, man, I just don't want to see more hatred, more lawfare, more attorneys getting rich on scandal. I don't want to see more statements against people and just negative everywhere, and right? I want to see less of that, not more. I want people to realize that, you know what, we may disagree vehemently on politics. We really may. I don't even know what to say. We may have anger, fear, frustration. I get all those things. But folks, at what point is it going to stop? My mother used to tell me, when I was a little kid, I'd argue points sometimes. I was at this from a young age, debating and discussing issues. And she would say, Sam, is it better to be right and make an enemy? Is it better to be right and lose the Spirit of God because there's contention, which is the spirit of the devil? Or is it better to just stop? Let it go. Give people some grace, and you don't have to be right, Sam. Because it's not a matter of what's right, or who's right, It's a matter of what's right. It's not a matter of who's right, it's a matter of what's right. And Sam, you're not right all the time. And so, as one of the top 100 talk show hosts in the nation, I get it, I'm not always right. But I hope to focus on what's right, rather than who's right. I need to learn to kind of settle my statements down. How can I learn to make statements that are less provocative, more healing, more hope-filled, less divisionary, and more inclusive. Well, all I can say is I pray for Ocasio-Cortez that she can stop. I pray for Donald Trump that he can stop, that we can have less lawfare, that we can have less anger and division, and more civility. We may not agree, we may not have complete unity, but unity is only achieved if we start with civility first, right? So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, folks. By the way, I got a big old piece of property you might want to buy. Yeah, you got a couple, $2.5 million. All right, well, I'll tell you what you can get for $2.5 million in seconds, okay?
As you are aware, America is divided over every fault line possible. This is intentionally fostered by those who do not love God, family, or country. We believe a peaceful future as a free people absolutely depends on civility. Clarion Call for Civility is looking for funding and volunteers at every level to make our hopes and efforts a reality. Please donate, sign our pledge, and help us in our sacred cause. Please visit callforcivility.com for more details. Callforcivility.com.
Bypass the mainstream narrative with Liberty News Radio at libertynewsradio.com. Engage with charismatic hosts live or on demand. We cover the crucial news focused on God, family, and country. News that other networks simply refuse to use. Think of LNR's hard-hitting news and podcasts at your fingertips, anytime, anywhere. Join us at libertynewsradio.com. Empower your day with the truth, because the truth will set you free. libertynewsradio.com.
As you all know, Roe versus Wade has resulted in some of the most permissive abortion laws anywhere in the world. For example, in the United States, it's one of only 7 countries to allow elective late-term abortions, along with China, North Korea, and others. Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change. Americans are more and more pro-life. You see that all the time. In fact, only 12% of Americans support abortion on demand at any time. Under my administration, we will always defend the very first right in the Declaration of Independence, and that is the right to life.
Man, it's very strange how many divisions we have in America, and I don't know how to heal them. I don't know how to work on it, but I will say this. The Blaze has an article. Let's see, what is it? Owen Anderson over at The Blaze has an article. And it's very, I don't know how to say it. It's very difficult to break this down, but I'll try. Chip Gaines tells us not to judge, but we won't pretend anymore, writes Owen Anderson over at The Blaze. You say, what's this about, Sam? It's a big old battle, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we have all these divisions in our society, and it's all over the culture war. It's over Christians versus non-Christians. It's over. So Chip Gaines tells us not to judge because they have a new show out now, and I guess a gay couple adopts children and da-da-da, and it promotes the gay agenda and lifestyle and brings children into the mix, and it really, what's the word I want to say? Triggers is the best way I can say it. It really triggers people because, you know, if you're a Christian, you believe that God created a male and female, and there is a binary, and male should love female and female should love male, and you know, you should only have one spouse and only be involved sexually with that spouse, and anything other than that is sin, and the gay lifestyle is a sin, and et cetera, et cetera. And I get that view and agree with it. I agree with the Christian, God-ordained establishment view. I really do. And I have every right to believe that way. But what Chip Gaines is telling us not to judge. And so Chip Gaines is kind of saying, hey, Christians are a bunch of bigots. Christians are a bunch of haters. Christians are a bunch of... Well, man, I thought it was the Christian audience that made Chip and Joanna Gaines famous in the first place. Weird, huh? Well, anyway, so it's a big old battle going on. But I want to say this. I completely disagree with the gay and lesbian, bisexual, transgender, whatever it is, lifestyles. The queer lifestyles, all the different things. But here's the question that everybody really needs to ask themselves, in all honesty, in all fairness. Is it possible for me to stick with my beliefs and still be kind? Or do I have to betray my beliefs to be kind or to be accepting? And that's where I think we make big mistakes in our society today. I think we've been led down the primrose path of dishonesty, which is this. The only way I can possibly be decent to the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender crowd is to capitulate and agree with them, or accept them, or glorify them, and I believe that's a big lie. I believe that's a huge, dishonest lie. I can hold on to my views, which is I believe those lifestyles are wrong and sinful, and I believe those who are leading people to those lifestyles are pushing propaganda, and they're being dishonest with themselves, with their God, and with those around them. Now, I can love the sinner, but hate the sin. And that's really where the truth lies, in my humble opinion, to which I'm entitled. And that is this. I can disagree with your lifestyle, but I can be kind to you as a person. I can think you're misled or deceived or whatever, or wrong, but yet I can treat you with decent respect and human dignity. And I can realize that you're a child of God as well. And I can be kind to you. I can be gentle to you. I can be your servant, meaning I can serve you and do things for you in spite of it all. Yeah, I have a dear friend that happens to be gay. I completely disagree with his lifestyle, and he knows that. However, we've been friends since we've been little kids. And when he announced or came out or whatever you want to call it that he was gay, at first I rejected it pretty strongly, and it affected our friendship very negatively. But over time, I've come to learn that I can love him as a person in a Christ-like love, in a brotherly love, in a respectful love, and I can be kind to him, and I can serve him and treat him as a friend and listen to him and respect him, and I can still hold to my values. I don't have to put my values on the altar, and neither does he. He believes in that lifestyle. He believes that's for him. He believes he was born that way. Everything he believes on this topic, I pretty much believe the opposite. But here's the question. Can we set that topic aside and focus on our uniqueness as individuals, God's children, and accept our differences and say, you know what, we can respect one another's beliefs even though that we don't understand them, we don't agree with them, but we can respect them. And so I would like to, on one hand, agree with Chip Gaines that we shouldn't judge one another. On the other hand, I want to stand with those who believe that the lifestyle, just because we don't judge, we won't pretend anymore. And so we can say, hey, Chip, we believe you're going down the wrong road. So I can be kind to you, Chip, and I can not argue with you and not have a meltdown and not attack you, and you don't have to attack me. But I can vote with my dollars. See, remember, I can hold on to my beliefs, and I can act according to my beliefs. But that doesn't constitute hate or anger or betrayal or judgment against another. I can just say, I'm not going to watch Chip Gaines' new show promoting the gay and lesbian agenda. When I see movies or shows and they, bring gay characters into it, if they bring a gay person into a show, I can accept that because I think there's gay people in our lives that we run across, and learning how to deal with them or how to respond to them or how to interact with them in productive, positive ways is a good thing. We must confront sin in our lives and in our society. But how do we deal with that when it happens? Do we respond with judgment and hate and add fuel to that fire, which is what Satan loves? Or can we, instead of ratcheting up or escalating, can we learn to de-escalate? And my friend that's gay, I pray for him daily and hope his life goes well. And I can hope that one day he may see the errors of his ways. And now that will be triggering to some. They would say, see, how dare you? You still hold on to your hatred and your... No, I don't. I just believe differently. Let me give you another quick example. I have a friend that's a Baptist, and I happen to be a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a Mormon is what we're nicknamed. And we have different theological differences. We both believe in God and Christ, but we have theological differences, and he believes that I'm deceived. And I believe that he's deceived. And we've actually had discussions about this in a productive way where we say, you know what, even though I believe you're deceived, I'm gonna pray for you and hope that you see things as I do. That's natural for people to want us to see things as they do. Everybody wants that. Everybody thinks that their view and their is the best way or the right way or the whatever way. And so my friend wants me to see things his way, and I want him to see things my way. But when do we say, I want that for you because I care and I love you, versus I want that because I want to prove I'm right? Or versus in a judgmental way, I want to attack you because you're wrong. Only God knows our hearts, ladies and gentlemen. And I submit to you that your heart is what counts. Where is your heart? Do you genuinely care for people? So I don't want to judge Chip Gaines. I pray for him and his family and his life, and I think he's going down the wrong road personally, and I have the right to that belief, and I have the right to turn off his program. That doesn't mean that I wish any harm on him. I hope that he comes to his senses. Anyway, it's a very interesting story. If you go check it out at The Blaze, it's a story that, is pretty popular because, again, Chip and Joanna Gaines, very popular people back in the day. I believe Christians made them popular, too, back in the day. And now he's turning on the Christian community, saying that we're hate-filled and judgmental. Well, Chip Gaines, I'd love to sit down with you in an open, candid discussion. And I'd like to know where your heart is before God, before the world, before your family. And I'd like to learn and understand. I may not agree with you, but I can listen, and I can learn, and I can show empathy and kindness and respect and honor and dignity, even when I completely disagree. And some will say, well, the gay and lesbians, they just want to, move this agenda, and they're perverts. They want to move into pedophilia and destroy your kids. There's some that are that way, for sure. There's certainly an agenda afoot that's that way, backed by Satan. But that does not mean that all these people who may be feeling or thinking differently than, say, I do, that doesn't mean that's their agenda. Each individual will be judged by God based on their own hearts, their own feelings, their own actions, not upon some broad societal agenda. So we need to be very clear. I'm not judging you, Chip Gaines. I am saying I don't want to watch your show. But I am saying I'm willing to sit down and listen and have an open heart. All right, I told you I'd tell you about that house you can buy. It's a cool house. Well, not really. But I'll tell you all about it in seconds after the break. This is very interesting. You remember the hideout? Yeah, you can own the hideout where FBI busted Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, it's a 156-acre property. I'll tell you all about it. She was hiding out and got busted and hauled into prison for her involvement in the Jeffrey Epstein scandal, right? Anyway, I guess that house sold for $1.something million in 2019. It's up for sale again. Price is a little north of that. Details in seconds. I'm Sam Bushman. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
Pursuing liberty, using the Constitution as our guide. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Jason Walker. An Israeli ultra-Orthodox party leaving Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition government. The party, United Toward Judaism, cites a number of disagreements over a measure granting military draft exemptions for religious students. Israel, meanwhile, carrying out a major airstrike inside Syria earlier today to protect its Druze allies from an attack by Syrian tanks. Former Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Dr. Michael Oren.
Israel has what we call a blood kinship between the state and the Jews, people between the Jews and the Druze. And when Jews countrymen, when their relatives are under threat in Syria, Israel will come to their aid.
And Dr. Oren says it's a very close kinship.
And the Jews live in Israel, they live in Syria, in Lebanon, and in Jordan. And in Israel, they are intensely loyal to this country. They serve in the army. My own commander, several of my commanders were Druze, very, very fine soldiers.
Also, at townhall.com, NVIDIA is getting approval to sell AI chips to China. Here's correspondent Charles De Ledesma.
NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang says the technology giant has won approval from the Trump administration to sell its advanced H20 computer chips used for artificial intelligence to China. The company shared the news in a blog late on Monday, and Huang also spoke about it on China's state-run CGTN television network. The White House announced in April that it would restrict sales of NVIDIA's H20 chips. I'm Charles De Ledesma.
John MacArthur, pastor of Grace Community Church, Sun Valley, California, has died after a battle with pneumonia. He was 86 and a longtime valued member of the Salem Radio Network family. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Hi, it's Mike Gallagher. You work hard, you build wisely, your home has become one of your greatest assets. If you're staying put this summer, this might be the perfect time to put that equity to work. Whether it's funding a second home, helping your kids get their start, or simply creating more margin in your financial life, Mike and Brian at Fellowship Home Loans are the only ones I trust to guide you through it. They've done loans for my family. They tailor every loan to fit your goals. Fellowship is a direct lender and operates with your best interest in mind. If you're looking to access your equity through a refi or exploring a HELOC for some cash this summer for a second property, or maybe tackle those updates you've been putting off, start with people you trust, people I trust. Go to fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, fellowshiphomeloans.com/Mike G, or call 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, DBA Fellowship Home Loans, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character, where educating both hearts and minds brings about academic excellence. There is a school in American Fork where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. Based on LDS principles and a love of country, now in our 39th year, American Heritage School is accepting fall enrollment for kindergarten through high school. What would you do for your child? Give them an education that will prepare them for life. Located east of the Temple in American Fork, American Heritage School is a remarkable and affordable alternative. Visit us, find us online, or in the Yellow Pages. American Heritage School in American Fork.
Introducing Managed IT Services from NPI. We offer top-notch data backup and recovery, email spam protection, and network security tailored to your needs and budget. With 20-plus years of experience in the medical field, our HIPAA-certified consultants know what it takes to protect sensitive information. Don't settle for less. Give us a call at 801-706-6980 and experience the difference with Managed IT Services. Remember, your IT support should be fast, efficient, and reliable.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Hard-hitting talk at your fingertips. So I guess this hideout, they call it the NH hideout, which stands for New Hampshire, I guess, right? Where FBI busted Ghislaine Maxwell. I guess it's a 156-acre estate. And I guess it could be yours. You can buy that dude if you want to for $2.5 million now. Newsert.com with the piece. I just find this interesting. I don't know who would want this property. I certainly would not. I guess they say it has a wood-burning stove and it's a very remote, on the top of a mountain kind of a property, and da-da-da-da-da. It's just interesting. I guess it sold for $1.5 million or something like that back in 2019. That was back when, I guess in 2020, she got arrested, right? And I guess she's got a somehow other property that's like in the, I don't know, mainstream and not out in the woods or whatever you want to call it, sold for like $4 million or selling for $4 million. All I could tell you, I personally wouldn't want that property. Just saying, I'd go for other property. And believe it or not, I'd rather have the Chip and Joanna Gaines property. I'm just kidding. I'm just saying it's very weird, right? Very strange that this would be coming up for sale. Every time Ghislaine Maxwell gets her name in the news, then some property or something comes up for sale or there's some money transactions surrounding it. I don't think that's a coincidence. All right, there's a battle between Donald Trump and the states now. More than 20 states sued President Trump's administration over billions of dollars in, quote, frozen education funding for after-school care, summer programs, and more. Congress, by the way, had set aside money to provide, quote, academic support, enrichment, and child care to mostly low-income families. But the Donald Trump administration recently froze the funding, the Associated Press reports. And I guess the big battle about this is, hey, Trump can't freeze this money because Congress allocated it. And there is the big battle that we've seen go to courts and et cetera. You know, Donald Trump basically shut down the education department and decreased a lot of the, employees and funding, and they sued and said, no, you can't. And the court said, yes, he can. He can lay off people left and right. So really the question is, when Congress sets aside money for something, when can Donald Trump, stop it or whatever you want to call it? And that's what's at stake here. The states, by the way, are scrambling for funds after Donald Trump is decreasing these expenditures. Now Donald Trump laying off a bunch of staff in the education department. 1,400 people were laid off. Then I guess they were brought back or intended to bring back. And now the courts, SCOTUS says, hey, Trump can do this. So the battle's on. And the next headline says states are battling or scrambling for funds after Trump cuts funding to Medicaid and SNAP. SNAP is the food program, right? Cuts to Medicaid and SNAP. Now, here's what's interesting. They say these states are, kind of scrambling in a big old bind, melting down and all this stuff, right? But when you dig into the details, you go, really? What's going on with this? Well, cuts to Medicaid and SNAP, they say, won't fully take effect until after the 2026 midterm elections. But states budget a year or two into the future. And so states, the states are required to balance their budgets. And so they're trying to figure out, hey, which people can they protect and which people have to kind of fend for themselves. And states are kind of looking ahead on this thing. And I guess my response to the states would be, yeah, I know you have to balance your budgets, and I get that, and I wish the general government would balance their budget too. That's a whole other topic. But if it's not till at the end of 2026, which means you have the elections in November, then you have Christmas and all that kind of stuff, most likely none of this will be taken up till, January 2027. We've literally got a year and a half until that occurs at least, right? So I don't really like the term states are scrambling for funds because it makes you think that something is imminent when it's really not. They've got plenty of time to work that out. And if you don't believe me, the whole government gets down to the wire of, well, we haven't passed this legislation or this funding bill or spending bill or whatever. And so, man, we're going to have to shut down the government. Literally, I mean, they even, vote till midnight and then say, by golly, it was going to shut down. But at 12:07, they came up with an answer and solved it. And that's just minutes before or after, whatever you want to call it, the meltdown would happen. And so these states have plenty of time. What I would recommend the states do, because this is Solutions Radio, right? Instead of suing your government, literally they say 20 states sued the government and states are scrambling for funds. And it's all these different fundings that Donald Trump is trying to reduce spending. Why don't you states find out how to fund it internally for those programs which you believe the most important? But more importantly, why don't you states turn to your citizens? There can be philanthropists. There can be well-intended, wealthy people that can fill this gap. Think about the food banks that you have locally and how many people contribute to the food banks. I know that I do several times a year. My church asks me to, and I do, and they have service where they go around and give me the opportunity to contribute. I'm aware of it during Christmas and contribute. And we, the Christian people, don't need the general government to be mandator of funding for the less fortunate. All right, I get some of these programs are needful in society. The question is, who should do that? Should it be your government? Let's just take my community. I'm in American Fork, Utah. It's a community of about 35,000 people. It's a pretty small town. Do I really need somebody 2,000 miles away, or whatever the number is, in Washington, D.C.? Do I really need to send all my tax dollars and all my fellow citizens, send our tax dollars to Washington, D.C., have all these middlemen in the mix, have all these overhead and all these expenses in the mix, and then have them from as a Lord on high, if you will, rain down money on my community to make sure that it's safe and protected and that, hey, there's academic support, enrichment, child care, Medicaid, SNAP. Do I need that? Or is there a way, listen carefully, or is there a way for me and my community to take care of this ourselves and not depend on Donald Trump and the administration? See, I think there's a way. I think there's a way that we could do that ourselves and not send our money. I mean, we might do it at the state level. We might do it at the county level. We might do it at the city level. We might do it at the church level. That's fine. But why do we have to go to the general government level? And if we say, well, we have to go that, then why not go to the world level? We could ask the World Bank to take care of our, just say, hey, we don't need Donald Trump. We don't need the administration. Let's just have the World Bank do it. Or the World Monetary Fund do it. Or the World Something Fund. We don't need that, people. What we need to do is step up to the plate as Christians. What we need to do is say, hey, we must take care of our own. What we need to say is we must be our brother's keeper. Look after our brothers and our sisters. We can take care of these things at the local or at least at the regional levels, right? I get that some cities are more poor than others or, struggle more than others. Hey, we can reach out to our neighbors in the neighboring cities or in areas that are suffering more and reach out. We can do that. And the closer the government is to the people, the better it is. And the more we take care of our brothers and sisters as our Christian duty requires, the better off we are. The better off we'll be in terms of the money going to the right purpose, the less overhead, etc., the less mismanagement. We also, when we're local, can see what the needs really are and make sure those needs are being addressed properly, but not manipulated or taken advantage of or misread or misunderstood. See, when you have things 2,000 miles away, oftentimes it's very inefficient because those 2,000 miles away, they don't know what it looks like on the ground, right? So it's very hard for them to make decisions that make sense. When is it being taken advantage of? When is fraud occurring? When are people mismanaging it or not putting the funds to the actual needs? We need local people. We need to handle this out of the kindness of our Christian collective hearts, not as a government mandate from 2,000 miles away. The sooner we learn that, the more we can take care of those around us in productive, respectful, dignified ways, right? All right, hang tight. I got more. This is Liberty Roundtable Live.
As the United States boldly stepped forward in the glorious light provided by its new Constitution in 1787, the nations of the earth were in awe of the newfound strength and hope of this free land. Today, the nation stands at a crossroads. A divergence from the original intent put forth in the United States Constitution has brought grave threats to our beloved nation. A miracle is needed if the United States is to survive. That miracle is again the pure application of the United States Constitution. I'm Scott Bradley. In my To Preserve the Nation book and lecture series, I bring forth truths that will help raise up a new generation of statesmen like those noble Americans who founded this land. Vigorous application of these principles will invigorate and restore the nation, and we may become again the freest, most prosperous, most respected, and happiest nation on earth. Visit topreservethenation.com to begin that restoration.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at cspoa.org. That's cspoa.org.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
All right, back with you live. Final segment, news the networks refuse to use. President Donald Trump issued an ultimatum to Russia and gave President Vladimir Putin 50 days to reach a, quote, peace deal with Ukraine. And I think about that and I think, wait a minute, why is Trump giving an ultimatum to Russia to create a peace deal with Ukraine? Shouldn't Russia and Ukraine work out their own deal? Why would Russia, or Ukraine for that matter, need to answer to Donald Trump? Trump has, quote, warned that he will impose strict new economic consequences against Russia if Moscow does not accept a peace deal with Ukraine in the next 50 days. And I look at that and I understand why Trump wants peace there. I get it. I want peace too. But I don't get where Trump has the right to circumvent the sovereignty of the Ukraine or Russia. And you can say, Sam, Russia's a bully. They've invaded the Ukraine. Look, these, whatever you want to call them, lines between states or countries have changed over and over for a long time, for thousands of years in many of these places. And why do we think that the President of the United States should be involved there? And why do we think we have money to spend for change there? Okay, Trump first said it's not our war. He's right about that. But now he says, hey, I got to give weapons to the Ukrainians. They desperately need them. What would it take to have peace there? Don't know. There's a lot of pride, folks, And when nations and people are proud, it doesn't go well. When people are humble, things go well. So you say, Sam, what would your recommendation be then? Smarts, you think you know everything. What would your recommendation be? My recommendation would be that we follow the Founding Father-esque viewpoint, which is let's avoid foreign entanglements. Let's say to Russia and the Ukraine, hey, we've got a copy of the Constitution for you. It'll help you guys manage your internal affairs. It'll provide checks and balances within your systems. It'll protect the people and provide more liberty than anything else we've seen to date. It works for us. It can work for you. And we can advocate. Now, I get that we can also use the tariffs, etc., to advocate for those who respect free markets and liberty for their people. I get that there can be some economic engine influence there. But I really think we need to spend our time with diplomatic relations, sitting down and talking, set an example, but not where we're not wanted. And when you issue an ultimatum to Russia, that's fine. Except for when you start to create economic consequences, what are those? When you cross the line into sanctions, as opposed to, hey, if you want to send products to the United States, we'll crank up tariffs. I think you can do that. I think you can also have secondary tariffs. Don't ship products to Russia and then let Russia ship them to the United States, kind of an idea. Secondary tariffs. That's where people try to ship their products to a third party or another country and then ship them into the United States. Their efforts are to circumvent the, quote, first tariffs, so they're called secondary tariffs. I get it. And I get that we can use those tariffs to say, if you're going to play in our markets, we want you to fly right. That's appropriate. But if you start with sanctions, at some point you become involved in their war. And if you're not very careful, it borders on becoming a war criminal yourself. It really does. Because when do we think we have the right to demand this or that from these countries? At some point, folks, I'm telling you that it will just be the blowback principle. They will look at America and say, you guys think you're just the cop of the world and the bully of the world, don't you? We need to stop that. You say, well, Sam, come on. We just want to advocate for peace and protect our interests. No, we're crossing the line into violating the sovereignty and the freedom and the agency of other countries. You say, no. Well, then why do we have $1 trillion military budget? Why do we spend more on the military than all other nations do? Well, Sam, because we have to protect our interests. Really? What does being involved in the Russia-Ukraine debacle or war have to do with our own interests? Well, Sam, we have people and assets over there. Why do we have people and assets over there? That's exactly the point. We're in over 130 nations militarily speaking. Are we going to eventually, or at some point, are we going to stop that or have less of that? And if we're not, then what? Right? I mean, at some point, you just say, we don't have the right. I advocate for peace. All right, there's an article about radio. And I got to, again, take this delicately because there's radio stations that carry this show. There's people that have strong feelings on this topic, but I got to speak out about it. Headline says, quote, push lawmakers to act on AM radio. And then they say air new radio spots to convey a sense of urgency to Congress that the time to bring the AM radio for every vehicle act to the House floor. The time is now. It's crucial that we get as many listeners as possible to contact Congress to express their support. Download new versions of radio commercials today to promote this. And I know the radio industry is so interested in this. They love this, right? They're all for it. But I'm not, folks. Now, let me explain. You say, why aren't you for it, Sam? Because I love radio as much as anybody. And I believe radio is a great, great necessary thing. In fact, when there's catastrophes like floods or natural disasters or fires or earthquakes or whatever, hurricanes, I believe radio is kind of the last resort for communication. Oftentimes when everything else is melted down, somebody can get on the radio, and if you have a radio, you can listen and get updates and safety tips and guidelines, and it's a way that people can communicate and work together, and I get and support all that. But think if I'm a car manufacturer and I make a car. By law, do I have to put a radio in it? And an AM radio? Even if there's becoming less and less listeners to AM radio over the years because there's new, better ways to listen. And you say, well, Sam, yeah, but AM radio, in a pinch, it's the lifeline. I get it and agree. So I think we ought to appeal by the court of public opinion. I think we ought to appeal by letting people realize how essential of a service this is. So I support AM radio staying in cars. I just don't support the mandating of it by the government. Okay? It's easy to buy a car with a radio in it. It's easier to install an aftermarket radio. And I don't think we ought to try to mandate car manufacturers put radios in their cars. Okay? Because at what point is AM radio more important than another service like shortwave? When an emergency, shortwave can be every bit as valuable, if not more so, than even AM radio. What point would I need to put a CB radio or that kind of local communication in a vehicle? Because that's a great communications over-the-air option too. That if the internet goes down and everything else goes down, it can be very valuable. So do I now need a shortwave radio and a CB radio in every car? Okay, I just have a problem with the mandating of things, folks. I get the point, and I get the need. I just think we don't have to mandate everything. If enough Americans want AM radios in cars, cars will have AM radios. And it's our job to make sure that Americans know the reasons why AM radios are so valuable in cars. I get that too. And we can certainly advocate and educate. But I am not the force guy, and I'm not the guy to make more laws on every topic under the sun. So I know the radio business is like, we got to do this. All the AM radio stations depend on it. You should have thought of that before you started, creating societal leave for AM radio. AM radio could be revitalized if we would do it right. But they're not doing it right. What if we turn AM radio into like a CB band where everybody and their dog could put up their own little local AM radio stations? Instead of it being a licensed, quote, commercial, very expensive. Most radio stations cannot afford the expense to keep their radio stations, their AM radio stations on the air anymore. It's too full of regulation. Mandated this, mandated that. You got to have your tower this, you got to have your license that. I've owned an AM radio station, and it's very tough to stay alive. That's why AM radio stations are dying on the vine. But there's ways the government can get out of these things and not add insult to injury. For example, they had an emergency broadcast system where they made every station put in equipment where the government could take over their radio station at the drop of a hat. I was involved in it. It cost me anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 just to install that system, and I had to pay for it because government mandated it. It becomes very expensive for these companies. I don't think mandating it is the answer, although I recognize the value and the necessity and the urgency of keeping AM radio alive. I support and understand all that. How do we learn to live and do good things without government at the center of everything we do, huh? Can we learn to live that way? I think we can. But it's going to take cooperation and kindness. It's going to take respect and dignity. It's going to take us all to sit down at the round table in an effort of civility and try to seek understanding before seeking to be understood, right? God save our republic.